Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Entropy Podcast. I'm your host, Francis Gorman. If you're enjoying our content, please take a moment to like and follow the show wherever you get your podcast from. Today, I'm thrilled to have Tracy Z. Maleeff with me. Tracy is the owner of Sherpa Intelligence, LLC. Before transitioning into security, she spent over 15 years as a librarian across academia, corporate, and law firm settings. Armed with a Master's of Library and Information Science from the University of Pittsburgh and an undergraduate degree from Temple University in Penn State, Tracy has fused her deep research skills with cybersecurity. She's also known for her open source intelligence research, daily InfoSec and privacy newsletter, and being featured in the Tribe of Hackers books. Tracy, it's fantastic to have you here with me today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Swansa. I have my coffee to toast.
That's great. And Tracy, when we start talking first, one thing that really drew my attention was you spent so many years as a librarian and in that area, and then you transitioned to cybersecurity. Can you share the turning point that made you look at cybersecurity as your next step?
Absolutely. It is. It's quite a long story, so I'll give you the shortened version. But basically, I was looking for something with longevity. When I was making a decision about my career, because in library science, I had pretty much gone as far as I could go. The next step up would be a law firm library director. And honestly, that's not really what I wanted to do. I want to be doing research and things like that. So I realized I had to look elsewhere. And I actually read an article. It was in Entrepreneur magazine. And it said, 3 ways to future-proof your career. And one of them was to find something that always interested you. What was a common thread between past jobs that you really enjoyed? And when I thought about it, it really was any tech aspect. Whenever if it was hardware, the printer was broken, I'd figure out a way to fix it. Or one job, I actually found this back panel email system that nobody knew existed. And I really enjoy doing things like that. So that's kind of when the idea dropped of, maybe I should explore tech, because prior to that, I didn't think that I was smart enough to be in tech, that I was technical enough, that I had enough, math and science. And that's some sort of weird gatekeeping illusion that took me far too long to penetrate. So that's when I started looking at tech as a whole, which I know is very broad. So that's why I was selecting different areas. Quickly realized I had no interest in programming in Rust or Sinatra or any of these other things. And after really kind of spinning my wheels and not clicking with any of the communities, within tech, an old friend said to me, "Hey, I work in back end security and cybersecurity. I think you would be good at this. There's a lot of non-technical aspects or technical aspects that you can learn." So it was really that. It was just kind of being also intrigued by cybersecurity stories. One of the tips I give people who are unsure about a career path: set up a Google News alert for different keywords. So I had all kinds of tech keywords and also all kinds of cybersecurity keywords. And I would look at these articles coming in, and I tell people, well, try to realize, what articles are you clicking on? What's drawing your attention? What's keeping your interest? And for me, it was very quickly to figure out, it's all these cybersecurity articles. That's interesting to me. So I like to say I made cybersecurity my quirky hobby. While I was still a librarian, I was listening to the podcasts, and I was getting involved with the community on Twitter back when it was a more cohesive social media outlet for our InfoSec community. And then I was brave enough to create an awareness project for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I pitched it to the law firm, and they let me run it. But then when Cybersecurity Month was over in 2015, I just had to go back to being a librarian. But I was off into this new world of information security. So I just kind of built myself a plan to start my Sherpa Intelligence company and make my way out of library science. And I knew that I couldn't just jump into a new job without without any training. So I used my OSINT skills, my research skills to do freelance until I landed an InfoSec job, which I did a year and a half later as a SOC analyst. And the rest is
Rest is
the rest
history.
is what you already read. Yeah. So that's what happened. That's how it happened. Is just me trying to be proactive. Reading the room, reading the world. Um, there was a time when I was making my decision that a lot of law firms were closing or merging, and I didn't want to be one of 100 law firm librarians in Philadelphia out of work, fighting for the remaining job. So, longevity, uh, you know, preserving, what I've built, things like that. So yeah, it was basically, I guess, out of necessity in a way, but um, it pays and it's helpful to be aware of your surroundings like that. It's not always admirable to go down with the ship if your company is going to the ground. You have to think of yourself.
That's a really, really intriguing story, Tracy. I love to hear the different backgrounds that people come from and end up in cybersecurity. I worked in film and television myself before I transitioned across, and again, was driven by the recession. So it's
Hmm.
always fascinating to see, and I think a lot of people in cybersecurity have come from different areas of technology and that, but librarian is a new one for me. So I'm interested to know what skills translated best for you, because there's always that kind of niche skill set, no matter what you do, that kind of finds a perfect space in the cybersecurity world. I suspect the research aspects and those were prominent when you transitioned across.
Absolutely. And I have made a whole like second career out of talking about it. When I spoke at Security B-Sides Dublin in May, my keynote was called Long Overdue, Making InfoSec Better Through Library Science. And that's where I did exactly that, what you asked. I showed how I can bring library science ideas, and I can talk about some of them now. The first one was just empathy. The One of the primary principles in library science is that you're there to serve the reader, to serve the user, whatever the customer, whatever you want to call it, and that people-centric mindset I noticed was missing less than 1 week into my SOC analyst job. Uh, I remember getting an email. This is absolutely true story. First week on the job, I remember following up with someone in the company about a security issue, and the response I got was, "Well, there's people who work in the cybersecurity department. I thought you all were just automated and it was all robots and things." I forget what she said. But it was just it was funny that she was genuinely surprised there was a person there. And I remember, asking the SOC, I said, "Do you not talk to the end users?" And yeah, the looks and the stuff I got. And that was very different for me because in library science, it is person first. You are, you know, focused on the patron first. And that's why you exist, is to help connect them with information. So that was a huge thing for me. And that's how that talk started, is I brought the 7 steps of the reference interview from library science, and I break that down and I apply it to information security. So I could talk about that for an hour by itself, but just to give you an idea, these are sorts of things I'm bringing in, is, yeah, the concept of empathy, of, you know, you're, you are in a service position. I said this at DerbyCon. I was fortunate enough to speak at the last DerbyCon, and I started my talk off with, we are in a service field, whether you like it or not, but, we don't make things, we provide service. And so to have so many people be very arrogant and condescending and demeaning to the people that we're serving made no sense to me at all. So I've been trying to bring some of those other concepts and organizational concepts and things like that into information security. And pleasantly, the response has been great. Anyone, if I do come across the rare, denier of what I have to say, then they just don't get it and it doesn't matter. But 99.9% overwhelmingly positive response to me bringing these concepts of library science into our world.
Because that's a kind of a sobering concept. So from someone who's worked this industry quite a number of years, I absolutely get what you're saying in terms of the robotic responses and the detachment from the reality that there is people at the back end of the system in some cases. When you looked at that, and I think this is something probably when you're in the industry, we talk about security as an enabler. We look at our awareness programs, but empathy in itself is a really strong, sediment that you can apply to people in general, and empathy in everything you do. But empathy and security is, I think you're the first person that has said it in such a sobering way, to be honest, in terms of,
Yeah.
you've created a visual for me now of the SOC, and I'm visualizing the SOC, and there's just alerts coming in, and it's alert fatigue, and you're forgetting that at the end of it, someone has clicked something, or someone's password has been compromised, etc., and that human touch. So from working in the industry now, and from those initial observations, did you make any changes or any suggestions that kind of helped improve that, or did you just get out of Dodge? Was it I can't work here, I need to go to a different department?
Oh no, I loved that job. I was there for almost 2 years. It was in a situation of I was a victim of organizational restructuring, as were my coworkers. So no, I did actually implement change there. I did win an award actually. I was given an award because I redesigned the daily threat intelligence email. I guess that's kind of overstating it, but it was basically like a daily email for primarily the higher ups in the chain. And when I saw what the current daily email was, I said to my manager, I can do this a million times better. And eventually the opportunity came around for me to take it over. And one of the higher ups liked it and nominated me for a financial award through the company, which I won in about 4 months after I started. So yeah, I definitely practice what I preach and implement things. And if you wanted a more concrete SOC example to sober you up even more, I have a very specific one. So empathy is important, but before empathy, you first have to have approachability. Because if you're not approachable, then people don't feel comfortable bringing these security problems to you. And then that's when the empathy can go out the window, because you think the users are stupid. They clicked on this. It clearly looks like it's this. Okay, except that we look at these things every day. An end user may not. It may look legitimate to them because they don't know any better. So the key message about approachability is this is how I explain it to people who are familiar with working in a SOC. I say, if you're approachable, an end user will have clicked on a link and have notified you right away. Oh, I think I did something stupid. This is the email. I think I clicked on it. Can you tell me if everything's okay? That's being approachable, okay? And say the person contacted you at 11:59, right before lunch, and you're thinking, oh, now I have to eat lunch at my desk. Okay, that's kind of a bummer, but what's the alternative? Not being approachable and 4:59 on a Friday of a holiday weekend, and you were not given a heads up that an end user clicked on something because you were too mean and grumpy and not approachable. Guess what I would rather do? I would rather eat my lunch at my desk than be stuck late on a Friday of a holiday weekend because I wasn't approachable. And that is very much what I saw happen a lot at the SOC, and also subsequent jobs I've had. Because of my approachability, I've been able to have people in the organizations I serve approach me privately, either because they were too embarrassed or scared or just unsure of how to report things or where to report things, or just also being judged. And I loved that superpower because I was able to thwart some problems because people felt comfortable coming to me and telling me these things. And I love it. I'll take librarian face all day in cybersecurity because I know that I've been able to do some good by being approachable and preaching approachability.
Tracy, that is a fantastic example. I'm actually, in my head, I'm thinking of the technical frameworks. I'm always thinking of the human-centric framework now that needs to be created by yourself and applied to the industry.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's so simple, and just to ground it in terms of approachability followed by empathy, and then to bring it to life in terms of the scenario. Would you like to eat your sandwich at lunchtime because somebody reached out instantly and you got ahead of the threat, or spend your entire weekend, couch surfing and drinking coffees and eating pizzas because, something's been ransomware and, you don't know how they got in or where they got in just because you weren't informed because of that wall you built. No, it's a fantastic example. It really is.
And
Tracy,
obviously it's not foolproof, but you get the general gist of it.
I get the, yeah, no, exactly. I get it. It's not foolproof, but nothing is. But I think it does bring it to life. It does bring it to life.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy, I want to talk a little bit about open source intelligence.
Sure.
For people who don't really know what open source is, can you tell me a little bit about open source intelligence, and then some of the methodologies that you would maybe apply to gather information from those sources?
Absolutely. So in the simplest terms, open source intelligence, or OSINT or OSINT, however you choose to say it, is basically anything not, what's the word that I want? Not classified. Not classified information. You don't need any clearance to see it. There's nothing, legally, militarily classified about it. I once ran into folks who said that anything that had a subscription wasn't OSINT because it wasn't free. OSINT doesn't equal free. Let's clarify that. So yes, a magazine that has a subscription is still OSINT. So it is what you can gather on your own, that is digital, because then there's also humans, which is human intelligence, which is a whole other area I am not qualified to speak about, but just enough to know that, to explain that it's a different type of intelligence. So this could be, your newspapers, it could be message boards, but what, in my opinion, and this is where my library science training comes in, it needs to be substantiated. You need to cite sources. You need to have receipts, as the kids say. One of my other pet peeves is watching presentations and people don't cite their sources, either with like a physical printing of it or just saying as you're looking at the slide. The information didn't come from the ether. You need to have a trail, a research trail. There's, tools like Hunchly that can help you with that. But it's important to know from where your information came. It's also called the provenance of your information. So I have a great example of this. Years ago, I was on a train going to New York for my job at the New York Times, and I started to see on Twitter that Kobe Bryant may have been injured or killed. And I am not one to just retweet something without looking into it. I feel strongly about validating information, and I don't always get it right, and I accept the correction when I get it wrong. But this time, this is what I was doing: was I knew to look for certain resources that I would consider reputable, because this was just some random account saying, helicopter went down. So instinctively, I knew actually to go to TMZ. I don't know if you're familiar with them. TMZ is a celebrity entertainment news outlet, but I just know from dealing with them in the past, because of the Harvey Levin as a lawyer, I know that they are very good at obtaining court documents and verifying information. They were the first to report it that I saw, and then I kept waiting for other sources to report it because I wanted to triangulate. I wanted to do a triangulation to say, okay, if 3 sources that I consider reputable report it, then I think that's fair enough to go ahead. So yeah, they reported first that I could tell. It took a half an hour for the Los Angeles Times and the New York Times to catch up, but once I saw them post about it, then I knew, sadly, it was it was true. But that's just and now keep in mind, I was on the train with nothing else to do. So I realized that this goes a lot quicker on the desktop, but since I was just dealing with my phone, but still the principle remains the same is, and why was I looking at the Los Angeles Times? Well, I knew that's where he lived. So, using critical thoughts like that of, well, let me check the local sources as well. Let's look at some local sources. So that's kind of an example of, using my thinking skills for that, because, you don't want to be liable for passing along incorrect information to, say, your SOC manager or your board. Another example I give is, you need to do your research, your OSINT research, as if it needs to be admissible in court. And why is that my mindset? Because I worked at law firm libraries for a long time. And you don't know where the research you did is going. There were so many times when lawyers would get back to me after their case and I'd say, oh, wow, that thing you found about this, really helped, with our case and all. And that piece of information to me, I had no idea would be used in court, but because of my, ethics and my practices as a librarian, I knew to substantiate it. But that's just the thing is, you never know what's going to be used. So you better make gosh darn sure that it is accurate with a citation from a source that you have checked out. And yeah, that's something that I preach a lot, and I wish more in InfoSec would do. Is with this. OSINT isn't just randomly Googling and throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. A joke in library world is all the dead bodies are buried on page 2 of Google results. Nobody ever goes past it. So hopefully that answered your question. But yeah, there's definitely skills that I recommend for OSINT to really, use ethics, use library science principles, and AI is making it more difficult. AI, fake stories are being published all the time. New publications, I want to use publications with air quotes, that you look into it and you need to follow the money. Who's sponsoring this website? Do they have ads? If they have ads, what are the ads for? Are the ads, for a certain leaning or follow them? And if they don't have ads, actually a site without ads raises suspicion for me, because it means they don't need money. It may not mean that, but it must mean that they're funded. So, okay, who's funding them? What are their objectives? Because this goes into the writing. I don't know if people realize that, but, everybody has a bias. You have a bias, I have a bias. It's about recognizing that bias when you take in information and you try to look for the truth, the neutral, and then document that. You can draw a citation from a controversial publication because that in itself may be of use to the person you're doing research for, but don't present it without the source, because there's context in that. Yes, it's a lot more critical thinking and analytics than I think people realize is what goes into OSINT. It's not just Googling.
It's not just Googling, no. And I suppose when you're using it to build threat intelligence and kind of deep ed research, do you spend much time in the dark web and that side of things, or do you try to keep it above water?
I don't actively do dark web research because I'm currently more interested in the stories and helping people make connections. I seem to have a knack of just finding really good news articles. So no, I'm staying more on, I guess, what's called the clear web. But there's still a lot that's uncharted in the clear web that people don't really seem to catch on to. So yeah, I'm always really excited when I find articles that I might beat some of the bigger companies posting, because I'm looking at sources that others may not be.
And Tracy, on that, if I think about what's happened in the last kind of month with OpenAI and Grok, and people who have publicly, unknowingly created sharing links that have been indexed by Google and are publicly available. I know they've stripped them, but then they've been stuck in different archives and time machines, etc. So we know once something goes on the internet, it's very hard to remove it again. You spoke about
Mm-hmm.
ethics and bias. When you see stuff like that happen, that's obviously now fair game. It's up there, but ethically, there could be information in there that is very sensitive. People's medical
Mm-hmm.
conversations, company information, but it's going to be a goldmine for bad actors. What
Yeah, absolutely.
when you saw that happening, did anything in your mind go, oh God, this is going to be a goldmine, or this is a disaster, or did that evoke any reaction at all for you?
Did AI evoke a reaction to me?
As in the indexing of the conversations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's horrific, and I knew all along it was going to be horrific. But I also knew that you can't stop it. So you just have to prepare, and you have to build your defenses against it. You have to build your analytical skills for it. So that's unfortunately another level of burden that researchers have. And what bothers me the most is the untrained person consuming this information. That's what's bothering me. Is I trust savvy professionals can suss out the fake, for the most part. But what really troubles me and worries me and does concern me is the general public consumption of this, because they, weren't trained to have digital literacy, which I know some countries have been doing or starting to do. Um, Information literacy or digital literacy, whatever you want to call it, again, is a library science principle that I have taught at a college level to be actually, and digital literacy is really important. And what I mean by digital literacy is all these things we're talking about of, how to identify a source, how to check, how to check the leaning of a publication, and, how to verify things. That's digital literacy, understanding that, you know, getting information from a local source versus an international source, the pros and cons of that. I wish that digital literacy was taught more in schools. Maybe it is at some point, but yeah, it's really, you need to have more analytical skills than I think most people are willing to use when they're surfing online. But I just ask that people, maybe stop resharing things you're not sure about. And, like, oh, that's wild. That's probably fake. Well, maybe don't reshare it. Don't feed into it. I know that's asking a lot. And believe me, I like to share stuff too, but I've made myself pause. Do I really need to share this? Am I sure that I'm sharing accurate information? Because that means a lot to me. I take pride in sharing, legitimate confirmed information. And I try, do my best to verify things before I share it. But that's just me. But yeah, it's terrifying. And yeah, I'm happy to talk digital literacy to anyone who would listen.
It's a very good observation, and I suppose we're seeing more and more of it, even in the professional space now. If you look at platforms like LinkedIn, you can see the clickbait. I suppose this piece of research made this statement, but the context is no longer there. It's been detached from the context that it was written in, and I think that's not only is it really poor practice, but it's also driving levels of disinformation and confusion. I think the MIT study of 90% of AI POCs never fail to scale, etc., has been flying around, but they didn't talk about the individual with a generative AI account is adding real value in the back end. So like the context isn't there, and I think that's something that's been missed. And I think the digital literacy conversation is yet again another important one that should be had at a national level. So that's a really great one to go after. One thing that you've said a number of times, and I've kind of been picking up on it: cybersecurity storytelling. Can you Can you explain this one to me a little bit? What do we mean when we say cybersecurity storytelling?
Well, I love storytelling as a skill set, and storytelling isn't about telling a story as it is persuasion. What you're trying to do is, if done well, I can tell these stories to prove behavior. So storytelling is fundamental to things like cybersecurity awareness. It's also fundamental to a security team working with an IT team that may be at odds. You know, a lot of tech departments butt heads with the security department, and it's having the ability, to convey a message of persuasion in a way that it'll be happily received and accepted. That's how I define it. I mean, it's, you're conveying information to either, persuade or, or entertain, or, there's a purpose to it. But I strongly connect storytelling in information security to the persuasion, because you're always trying to pitch something, aren't you? You're either trying to get more money for your budget, so that's persuasion. Your awareness is persuasion to change behaviors, right? So storytelling is a very valuable skill, and it is something that can be worked on and honed. And some people, many Irish people, are very good at the skill of storytelling. And actually, I did write a blog post about it. So I wrote, and I can share it with you so you can share with your listeners. But I was in South Africa at the time, and something about the heritage of storytelling in Africa just kind of got into my brain, and I thought this would be a great way, just great inspiration to write a blog post about storytelling and information security. And I did that, and I'll share the link with you. But I just really believe strongly that it's a great tool to have. And when I give my keynote talks, I tell stories from my library days. And, I think as part of the librarian theme that I always present, I think it's kind of a good stick, I guess, to get people to listen. But yeah, it's having some speaking skills, having ways to illustrate points through examples, which I've done on this call. It's about having, a good grasp of language and how to paint a picture with words. When I gave I think it was my very first talk to the cybersecurity world, it was B-Side Philadelphia, where I am, so good. The projector didn't work for the first 8 slides of my talk, which was very visually dependent. So while some guys in the back were furiously working to get the projector working again, I had to share my slides as, theater of the mind, like it was old time 1930s radio. And I did it. And by the 9th slide, it came back on, so I was able to relax. But no one told me that they didn't enjoy my talk. I had very well received. People complimented me on, conveying the message. So it is a really good skill to have, because sometimes the projector goes out and you need to be able to paint a picture with words, paint a picture, by speaking to convey your message. And that's where storytelling can be a very, very important skill when it comes to, working with coworkers, working with your end users, working with the higher up.
Absolutely agree, Tracy. And the Irish are fantastic at storytelling. So that's a whole different episode. But yeah, no, it's it may not be the sort of stories you want to tell your upper management. Is the only problem, But
there might be some foul language, but yeah, no, I would love to have like an Irish infosec storytelling contest. I think that would be phenomenal.
We might just have sowed a seed there. We'll see. Can we? Who can come up with the best? So that's a listener competition now, is it? We can put it out there. That's fantastic. Tracy,
or create some new, Irish blessing. Like instead of "May the road rise up to meet you," may your ports always stay open or something like that.
Stay closed, maybe. We'll have to.
Or closed, yeah,
We'll have to,
depending
we'll have to think
depending
about
on your
things.
perspective. Depending on your perspective.
Trace, before we finish up, I suppose
Mhm.
you're across a lot of research at the moment. Is there any trends in cybersecurity that you're excited about, or on the other hand, concerned about based on your work to date?
Oh, not really ever excited about anything. It's rarely good news. Quantum computing is something that I don't understand, but yes, but that is a concern that's rising. You can find a lot of good academic papers about it. It hasn't really made it into magazines and things like that yet. So this is also something, if you are more technically minded, you can go right to the source of these very technical academic documents. AI, and all the fake things really is a concern, continues to be a concern. And just also the way the global events are. Um, it's going to impact, journalists. Journalists are often under fire, and if they can't be on the ground reporting what's going on, and this does impact cybersecurity as well. Like we rely on journalists to tell us the world. So we need to do more to protect journalists, protect freedom of the press, because if we are being fed news through a curtain, we're never going to know really what's going on. And you know, to quote a famous TV show of the '80s, the truth is out there.
I only have some good news for you on the quantum front. Is we've had lots of experts on the show talk about quantum, so there's loads of episodes there, and quantum
Okay,
readiness and the
good.
quantum threat to check out if anyone wants to know a bit more. There, we just had today's episode was actually Dr. Mikhail Moska. He's a world leading expert in
Oh,
quantum.
fantastic.
So yeah, definitely lots of good stuff there, which is a bonus point for that topic. But Tracy, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on, and I think you've had some really unique perspectives come across, and I hope the listeners do enjoy the content. But I thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you today.
It's been fabulous, and yeah, I'll leave my information. People can subscribe to my newsletter, follow me on socials. I do post my thoughts and articles often, so please join me.
Excellent. We'll get those details off you, and we'll stick them into the episode detail when it goes live. Thanks a million,
Right,
Tracy.
and yeah, thank you.
Thanks a million.